Have you ever got the feeling that everything that you're seeing in Ireland in terms of how it's ran and the decisions that have been made from top down are being thrown up for us like softballs, as they say in America, right? Just to be batted away. Like, how more obvious can things get, right? So it's either an intentional and guided slow release of things that will snap people out of their own sleep, or we're just at such a stage here that regardless of what move this government makes, it's going to provoke a reaction from people, because the only hands that they have left to play are coming closer and closer to people's front doors, right? And that seems to be the last horizon, right, for people, or the line that people claim they won't allow to be crossed, right? So a number of years later, after the original water protests, we're now right back where we were, right? And this is a serious litmus test for people now. Serious. And I'm optimistic about it, because clear minds can only become clear once they can make sense of the information that they've been given, right? Once they can construct a coherent story of reality as it's presenting itself to people, right? When you get such conflicting information from people from one extreme to the next, right? It fuzzies people's minds, so they check out, because it's too much to ask for people to try and grapple with 57 different agreements or disagreements about what's going on in the country on 58 different issues, right? It's way too much. But when push comes to shove, and the shove lands at your front door, then you have one solid issue that people need to make sense of, right? And it is their way back into reality. Because if you disagree with water charges being imposed for wastage, right, however they're going to calculate that, so they're going to be measuring the water that's coming into your circuitry and is being discharged from your tap, right? So they're going to be sitting in your kitchen. This government wants to now sit in your kitchen and your bathroom and count and measure and weigh, right, the amount of water that is being used or that is being wasted on its journey to your taps. This was enough a number of years ago to have tens of thousands of people on the streets in Ireland. So much so that there was a few backward steps taken, right? So will it be enough this time? I'm curious to see, and I think it will rally up some spirit in people. I think it will give people a neutral enough ground for them to step onto beside other people, right? It's an issue that hasn't been sullied by months and months of propaganda around it, right? It hasn't been uh, associated with a certain emotional reaction as of yet, right? As of yet. It's something that people could step on, maybe unbeknownst to themselves in some ways, right? In order to channel or to offset some of the tension and some of the animosity that they have and that they're feeling based on the decisions that have been made for them and about their lives, right? And particularly about the money that they've earned and that they get to keep and what they're going to be forced to spend money on, right? So this is a good door for people to step in through, right? Because it might just be the straw, no pun intended, with water, right? The straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people who are also annoyed with the countless other things that are milking them of the very ability to sustain a life that is worth having sustained, right? Instead of just existing. People want to have a bit of meaning in their life. They want to do things they enjoy. They want to see themselves get better at the things that they enjoy. They want to feel like they're learning new things. They want to feel like they're part of adding to something substantial going forward, right? But when you're constantly just brought back to fighting and quibbling over fundamentals, like the amount of water you should be getting into your house and the amount of money that should be robbed out of your account every week, month, year, based on the very water that belongs to nobody. It doesn't belong to anybody, right? It doesn't belong to anybody. This could rile up Irish people and get people on side when they might disagree in principle or in presentation with other issues that are going on in Ireland, right? This is a neutral ground for people to step onto, and I welcome it, right? I welcome it because I think Irish people have an ungodly ability to endure, to persevere, to attempt to digest whatever problems or difficulties that are shoveled their way, and to soldier on through it, right? Stick the head down and just get through it. And in comparison to other times in our history, what's going on right now, it pales in comparison to the severity of what your ancestors have already gone through and survived, right? So I think we have these lines that are built into our collective mind, right? The Irish mind, this thing that all Irish people are plugged into, that no one else can plug into, right? They might say they understand it, but they're never part of it because they don't have the ancestry, right? And this goes for other nations and other peoples too, right? It doesn't matter if you get a page rubber stamped on a book to say you're an Irish citizen, or you're a Kenyan citizen, or you're an Australian citizen, right? You are what you are. And there's no real change in that. You're plugged into the dynamic that is these dynamic forces that have been in operation and have been moving. They've been alive, these pulses of Irish memory, right? That are thousands and thousands and thousands of years old on this land, right? You're plugged into that. They pulse through you. And the idea of charging people money for something that nature gives so freely, it's funny the things that people react to, but this just didn't seem to sit right with Irish people. And what's fascinating is at the time there was many Eastern European people here, and a lot of them were saying, but sure, we have to pay for water back in our country, so it's only right that she should have to do it here, right? There's some tension right there. Massive tension. Two totally different ways of viewing something. But for the Irish people, charging them for water and increasing the companies coming in and taking ownership essentially of nature given liquid gold, right, of water, it didn't seem to sit right with Irish people. And this is a throwback to pre-Christian times, right? This is a total throwback to that. So those ancestral connections with the elements, they're stirring, right? And they stirred a few years ago with these water protests because they were magnificent. Magnificent stuff. But what you might see now is, if you see similar, if not greater crowd numbers, or even if you see less, it's going to be tinged with an anger and perhaps some flavor of desperation in people, right? Because they might realize that this is probably one of the best opportunities that Irish people have had to coalesce, to get together and to move on to something that isn't so easily smeared by the media, right? People won't mind being seen at a water charges protest, because how can you argue against that? So they might be quicker to get off the couch and go out to this than they will be a protest about immigration or whatever it is, right? Because it's been sullied in the media. But people can go and understand and accept the fact that they can go to this without having their reputations tainted based on the reason for this protest, if they come about, right? And I reckon they will. And I reckon based purely, and this is a beautiful thing, based almost purely on the pre-Christian idea of man being wedded to the land, right? And his wife being representative of Ireland. He was swearing an oath not just to his wife, but to what his wife was a symbolic representation of, which is the land of Era itself, right? It was even named after her, has a female name, right? So there's all ties back to that. Very, very pagan connection, if you want to call it pagan. You can call it druidic, you can call it pre-Christian, you can call it quintessentially Irish, and you need not go any further than that. And I think this is what will be reanimated by these kinds of nonsense things, right? So I welcome it. Thoughts?